It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Monday, June 10th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another week together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Provi in the media, the Sunday message word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? And yes, it is another week. It is Monday, and hope you guys have enjoyed your weekend and the Sunday service. Don't forget, every Thursday is Q&A, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, leave a like and comment to build our community. I'm just very grateful and thankful for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. Now, Sunday message title: Since I am with you, make sure you take action together as well. You must do that. And amazing masterclass message with so much evidence. And I'm going to tell you guys this. We just started doing scripts last week, and I'm going to tell, man, it was awesome. Like, you can probably get 4 to 6 scripts out of that Sunday message. And you guys heard the script that I use was one of the ones that was given in the Sunday message too. So I am very excited, very happy about that too. Yeah. So another week has arrived. How was your weekend, everyone? What did you guys do? What have you done? Hope you guys are really excited and happy for another week to put the words of God into practice. And I'm sure that we are, there's a lot of things that might have happened over the weekend, but I would say what a powerful and amazing Sunday message. And I really, really received, it almost felt like, you know how we're like, evangelism is such a focus right now, and people are trying to get themselves back and ready to start evangelizing again. And evangelism is one of the things, like I told you guys, it's one of the big things on my mind. And I would say that I don't know about you guys in your churches, and I'm not really involved with the churches here in Malaysia and stuff like that too, but I do know that evangelism is probably like one of the big things that we always think about all the time. And like I said, it is always on my mind, especially over the last 2 to 3 weeks. And I would say that a couple things that we should recognize as people who are... I think a couple things we have to recognize when it comes to the reality of evangelism in a church, okay? So number one is this. Reality is I know that we're probably going to be like, what's happening here with evangelism? What's happening here? And I'm sure people do get frustrated and stuff like that too. And I think it's okay for people to be frustrated about evangelism. I think it's okay because if it's not working, it's good, it's good that people have it on their minds that they're a bit frustrated about and stuff like that too, right? But I do think we have to always have a reality check. Now, what does that mean? The reality check is this. In reality, about 10% of your church are actually going to be on the front lines. About 10%. That's about like a normal percentage for like a regular sized church. Of course, it's going to be a little bit different. If your church is, imagine your church is 3 people and one of you is going out to evangelize. That's like 33%. So that's why smaller churches, the percentages are a little bit different. But we always have to recognize that there's going to be what is normal. And you can't expect something that is abnormal. Like you can't expect 30% of your church to be actively going out to evangelize. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. You're going to get about 10%. 10% of the church is going to be your likely number of manpower you have to actually be on the front lines of evangelism. So the one thing we don't want to do is to be thinking that we should have 25%, 30%, or everyone should be involved. And the answer is everyone can be involved, but we just have different roles, right? And I think that's something we should recognize as people in this history. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example, is if a family member, someone who has kids, is like saying, we need to work on evangelism, you can't really blame them for not going out to evangelize because they have kids, right? They have these young kids they got to take care of. It just doesn't make any sense. But there are going to be people who are going to have different roles. And I think one of the most important things when it comes down to evangelism, Find out who's actually on your front lines and work on your strategies and ways that you can help that frontline group actually go out to evangelize. And then look at the people in the back lines. Who are the people who are the supporters? Who are the ones that can actually go out and spend time praying for evangelism in the church, or going around, whether supporting it, they can pray for it, pray for the people going out to evangelize, pray for the campuses. There's a lot of different things, but I do think number one is one of the big things we have to think about is what is the reality in the church, and we can't be thinking that, oh, this is terrible, we only have 10%, because that's actually what's normal. We can't expect more than that, right? But we're going to have front lines and back lines, and we have to make sure that both lines are doing well in their role. We shouldn't expect people who are working career, 8 hours a day, 5 times a week, right after work, expect them. Like it's expectation that they should be going straight to campus or straight to church or something along that line. It's a very, very different life. And there's going to be the people who are inspired to do so, and there's going to be people that aren't. And I hope that's something that we can always recognize when it comes to, all right, how do we strategize? Who do we actually have? And from the people we actually have that are running, what can they do, right? What can we strategize, right? So, before I get into a little more deep, should I just go straight into it? Okay, so I'll tell you something. So today, on Sunday, because I do my recording on Sunday for the Monday podcast, and it's already 10 p.m. over here, so it's pretty late at night because I spent the last maybe 6 hours with 2 SS. And they're sisters, and I have known them since they were like 3 and 4, or maybe 4 and 5. I've known them since they were super young, like they were babies kind of thing, like little toddlers. And now they're all grown up. And this is like my second time I've actually, maybe second or third time I've actually hung out with them. And usually there's someone else that comes to hang out, and they couldn't make it today. And I thought to myself, this is the interesting thing. I thought to myself is, wow, it's a brand new dynamic where I'm actually just hanging out with them, like the uncle with the 2 SS, like 14 and 16, right? And I thought to myself is like, oh, I wonder what the dynamics is going to be, because the other person there is like super crazy and fun. So it's just really bubbly conversation, bubbly, right? And when this person said, oh, they can't make it, I thought to myself is like, ooh, I wonder, since you take one person out, how much will the dynamics change? And it is a different dynamic, but think about this. If it wasn't working out very well, or if it wasn't a good dynamic where I wasn't really getting along or clicking with this 14 and 16-year-old, then we wouldn't be hanging out for 6 hours. You know what I mean? So I thought it was quite interesting. We went to go eat, we went to a cafe, and then another cafe, and then we just kind of just like did. I thought it was going to be more of like a fun uncle and like little niece kind of time, but it was way different than I expected. The very first conversation. It was just kind of out of the blue. They were testifying about some huge event they had at church that started from the weekend of Alpha Day. And what they did was, this is crazy, it is amazing, right? And remember, they're 14 and 16. They did 3 days of learning every single 30 lesson. And each lesson was 1 hour, which means 30 hours in 3 days, which means 10 hours a day. And for me, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, will these SS, like these young kids, really enjoy that type of thing? And they were like, it was awesome. And I was like, what? And here's a very interesting thing is, while they were doing, because I knew they were doing it, and I just check up on them to see, hey, what lesson you, like during the 3 days, I checked up on them, like, hey, which lesson you on? And, during the lesson, it's very interesting. They'll be like, oh, wow, we've been here for 6 hours. Oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I'm hungry kind of thing. And, and it's not like they were like that the whole time, but, if you're going to be there for 6 hours and you're like 14 and 16, you can't really expect them to be completely focused for 10 hours for 3 days straight, right? But one thing I did notice is and this is something that I learned in psychology too. The most important thing that matters in one of these long, arduous, big types of event is the ending. And this just way this is the way the brain works. So I was listening to this psychology person. We're talking, I probably listened to this about 4 or 5 years ago, and they gave an analogy of baseball. And baseball is a very long and boring sport, right? It's very long and boring. So what happens is you can go through the first there's only 9 innings in a game. You can go through the first 8 innings, no hits, just boring, nothing happening, no big strikeouts. And, you just kind of go through the game, and the kids will be complaining and complaining and complaining, right? Like, oh, should we go early, Dad? Should we go early, Dad? But imagine in the 9th inning, there's 3 outs. So imagine the game is, or you're losing 1-0. And it gets to the bottom of the 9th, which means, and 2 outs, which means 1 more out and the game is over. And the first person hits a single. And then, and then you have 2 outs already. So 1 more person out and it's done. And the next person's up to bat, and it's like the star player who hits these home runs. And everyone is just on their feet like, come on, you can do it. And the kids are standing up, and it's all in this anticipation. And then all of a sudden, crack. And that star player launches this ball into the upper deck, and it's a 2-run home run. And they win the game. What's going to happen when the kids go home? They're going to say, oh my gosh, Mom, it was the best game ever. Oh, I couldn't believe it. Oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Oh, it was so awesome. It was bottom of the 9th. And here's the thing. They were complaining for the first 8 innings. They even wanted to go home. But how the brain works is the brain remembers the last thing the most. And how it ends is what makes someone like it or not like it. And when I ask them, like, hey, what was so amazing about these 30 hours, 3 days of 10 hours of 30 lessons? And they're like, the last lesson was so crazy. That's what they said. They said the last lesson was incredible, talking about Sunseam's life, and they're just sharing with me all the different things. And as they're sharing with me, I am just blown away that 14 and 16, what was I doing at that time? Well, actually, 14, I wanted to be a pastor, and I was really into it. But yeah, it's very interesting. But imagine doing 30 hours. And you're 14 years old, like how into it, you might complain that you might not even want to go to it. But this 14, 16, they're both like, whoa, that last one was crazy. And then from this point on, I'm talking about probably of the 6 hours we together, and this was even during lunch, even during in the car ride, even during when we went to the cafe, even when we went to the next cafe. It was crazy. It was question after question after question after question, and it was straight up all either about Sunseam or the Bible. And there's this one point that I was so blown away by their reaction. Okay, so this was the conversation. This was a conversation we went through, and we were talking about 2023, and they were telling, like, they would bring it up because they were talking about during the last lesson of Sunseam's history, like Providence history, and then the head leader was talking about 2023 and stuff like that too. And then on top of that, they were talking about, oh yeah, in 2023, and this happened and that happened. Oh yeah, and I heard it was very similar to 1999. Yada yada, like all these things came up, right? And then they started asking a bunch of questions like, oh, 2023 is like this, and this, right? And one thing I did bring up to them, and I told them something, and I was like, hey, did you know that even before the spiritual Oppenheimer, well, they don't know what that is, but before March 2023, when all this thing blew up, I told them, I was like, did you know that Sunseam already knew what was going on at least 6 months to a year before that? And they're like, really? And I was telling them, like, yeah, Sunseam had someone on the inside that was reporting secretly. And they're like, what? And when I brought up the point, I was like, I told them like, hey, the thing that's so shocking, Imagine you already know that this person that's so close to you is doing things behind your back, but in front of your face, they're like pretending to be all good and everything. How long could you treat them well? And they're like, oh, that's so true. And I was like, if it was me, I would be so sarcastic and I would be like hinting that I knew. Like if they came to me and said good things about me or treating me really well, I'd be like, oh, really? Oh, do you really believe what you're saying? Like, that's what human instinct is if we knew what was going on, we would kind of slowly give hints about it. But Sunseem just loves people, and Sunseem has been with these people for such a long time and trusted them and gives them a chance to repent and gives them a chance to the very, very end. And it's so amazing that Sunseem knew what was going on, but he would treat them so well. And these two girls' reactions, they're like, man, like that look on their face where they're so moved and they're like, wow, Sunseem, he's even more amazing. And I was like, whoa, like just seeing they're seeing the sincerity on their faces, realizing how amazing Sunseem is, like they're reacting in real time. They're not thinking about it. They're like, what? I couldn't do that. Sunseem is so amazing. Wow. And you see their face they're moved and they're kind of sad too that Sunseem had to go through that. And when I was sitting there, I was more moved that they were moved. And this was during lunch. We didn't even get to the cafe yet. This was just the first stop. And I was like, what? We have an amazing second generation coming up. We really do. We have some of these second generation that are stout. They are strong. They are, for me, it makes me feel like, man, if we can take care of these kids are going to be powerful. They are. They really, really are. And that's just the first stop. After eating, we go over to a cafe, and then there, the whole time, guess what the one topic was? Noah's flood. They kept asking me, like, how'd you come to Providence? How'd you do this? How'd you do that? What happened here? And I was like, oh, I got robbed. They're like, what? And then they asked it was basically 6 hours of Q&A and explanations. I was getting so much inspiration that I'm like, oh, I already know what my topic for the next Rebel Pastor is, right? For the next recording I do, I already know what I'm going to be doing in the future for the next one because I was like, whoa, that's such a good topic, right? So all these things, I'm just sitting there. It's really, I was shocked. And they're like uber talented in physical things too. One of them was the one I told you who's the singer that won the singing competition. The other one does ballet. And it was just, I spent another 2 hours just talking about Noah's flood. And guess what the questions were? Because, they're second gen. They're like, so what's the difference between former faith and Providence? Like, what's the biggest difference? And we're just talking about that. We're talking about the fall, how it led to, God destroying, flooding the earth. And they'll ask the question, like they're like going, hey, so it's a regional flood, but why does God only flood the region? Like, what's the reason why he can only flood the region? And then I would just be bringing up stuff that regular normal adults would not be as excited. Like, they'll be like this to me. They'll be like, so why did God only judge that region? Like, what's the reason he can only judge the region? And I'd be like, oh, Romans 2:12, Romans 5:13, and Romans chapter 7, verse 8. And they're like, huh? And then they start opening their phones. They start reading it in Chinese. They start reading it in English. And then I would give them a question. They're like, oh, I got it. Like, it was basically, I was with two sponges. They were just two sponges, just pew, 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 like just taking in everything. And I was just like, man, we got to take good care of this next generation. This generation's good. They're really, really good. Oh, and they also asked about evangelism too. And it's interesting because they're 14 and 16 and they think about evangelizing their friends, but it's like, they're like, what do we do? Like, we're going to be talking about Taylor Swift, and then all of a sudden we're going to say, like, so guys, you want to go to church? And I'm like, no, 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 no. And they're like, so how would you evangelize friends? And I'm like, well, how long are you going to have your friends for? And they're like, well, for a long time. But I was like, when you think about reality, and I was kind of giving them a reality check, right? I was like saying, how long have you had your middle school friends? How long have you had your primary school friends? And in most cases, most of your friends will not be there after you switch schools, after you move to your next university or next school. When you move from primary to middle, from middle to high school, from high school to university, what's going to happen is things change. It does change, right? And you're going to move to different friends group, different interests and stuff like that too. So you have to kind of look at these friendships that you have and look at them as kind of having a timeline, as in, well, when high school ends, you're going to go to university. You might hang out in the summertime, but eventually you're going to move to another school. You're probably not going to be that close anymore. So I was like, all right, for you're 16, so when do you graduate? They're like, a year and a half. I was like, so you have to think about, you have a year and a half time plan, which is a long time. You're going to meet your friends almost every 5-6 times a week. And they're like, yeah. So I was like, there's no point in telling your friends every day, come to church, come to church, come to church. No. And I told them, like, hey, these are people you meet all the time. It's just like friends, just like family. You're going to see them all the time, which means you don't need to push. You don't need to ask every day. The first thing you need to establish is just be confident in church, and just make sure they know you go to church. That's it. Don't say anything else. Oh, sorry, I can't go. I got church today. All right, no problem. Oh, I got service today. I can't go. Sorry, I can't do tonight. I have service. It's just confidence. Like, I have church. So everyone knows you're a church person. So once you have that established and you don't have to be inviting them or anything else like that. It's just whatever, right? Yes, when an event comes up, right? When an event comes up, don't worry about pushing them. Don't worry. Just ask them once. Oh, we got a singing event coming up next month. You want to come? Oh, I can't. All right, cool. Play it off. Don't worry about it. It's okay. They don't have to come. There's no have to. Don't feel pressured that you have to bring someone. The most amazing and awesome thing you're going to do is just asking, right? And then, even if they do decide to come to church, don't worry about them starting Bible study or connecting them to the Word right away. They don't have to. They don't. Just don't push it. These are people you're going to meet all the time. And if anything, when they know that you're someone who goes to church, and when the time comes when they have questions, they're going to come to you. Just be confident. Got to go to church. Sorry. Yep, I got church today. No, I can't do it. You go to church a lot. Yes, I do. I really like church. Boom, you're done, right? And later on, it's just establishing that you go to church. And then later on, what's going to happen is you have an event, invite them. They say no? Okay, no problem. And you just go on to the next conversation. Because these are people you meet all the time. Now, when is it going to be more like you have to try to convince someone? This is usually with street evangelism or people you may never meet again. You know what I mean? Like, these are people, when people go on campus doing a survey, you may never meet this person again, and you have to kind of convince them. That's completely different. But when it comes to friends at school, you're going to see them all the time. You'll see them for the next 600 days? No, 500 days. You're going to see them the next 500 days. Don't worry. Just be confident. Let them know you go to church. And then when the time comes for an event, invite them out and you're fine. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, I can do that. And sometimes it's because I think it's something that we do have to somewhat educate the different departments really well, because sometimes when we have educations on evangelism And then you're like, all of a sudden, these young kids like SS and such, they feel so pressured, and then they have to like pressure their friends into coming to church, and then even when they come to church, they gotta pressure them into doing like listening to the word and stuff like that. Nah, right? We gotta make sure that every level and every department is understanding at the level that they can do, right? And everyone's going to be different. So that's one of the reasons why I was talking a little bit about evangelism, because we were starting, like, these 14, 16-year-olds are asking me about evangelism because it's a big topic in church. Like, hey, what about this? What should I do with this? And I'm like, career department too is in the same position as students or like SS. Because SS don't have as much time as campus, who run freely. They'll have a car. They can go here to there. It's much, much different. SS are going to be basically seeing the same people each and every day. And same with career department. You're going to be seeing the same people every single day. So it's not like you can ask the same person every day to go to Bible study. It just doesn't make any sense, right? And you feel kind of bad that you keep asking them over and over again. So there's always going to be the general education. And of course, we have to help the different departments, because they're all going to be doing evangelism in different ways, right? So I think it's something that we do have to look at and think about too. And evangelism it's not easzy, and especially when you're little, not little, but when you're younger, like the SS age, and even into campus, a lot of times they feel pressure, like, oh, I want to do something for God, but I don't know what to do when it comes to me and my friends. And we just got to kind of calm them down and let them know, like, yeah, just be confident. Just let them know you go to church. You don't have to ask them every day. You have an event, then you have a reason to ask them, like, my sister's singing an event. You want to come? All right, cool. And then if not, all right. You don't have to pressure them or say anything else. Why? These are people you see all the time. And if you start to pressure too much, then you kind of feel bad, like seeing the friend the next day, or the friends will kind of start like, oh, they're going to talk about church again. You know what I mean? So I think it's something that we have to make sure that we teach each of the generations really well for the different types of evangelism and stuff like that too. Right? So, evangelism, big topic, and I hope it's something that we can continue to discuss more and more. I've had some comments and some friends actually talking to me about that too. They're like, hey, thank you so much for the script. It helps us. It helps us out a lot when it comes to evangelism. So, I really want to do my best when it comes to helping evangelism also through this podcast. Just got to take it day by day. Life is up and down, all these things happening. And, like I said, was it last Friday? Sometimes we just got to talk about poops and farts. I had this funny conversation with a friend from Australia, Julius, who does like health is happiness and stuff. And he said to me, man, he's like, the poop and fart stuff, he says, I really needed it at that time. And we were just both laughing together, because sometimes we do need that. And I think it's hilarious because it's true. Sometimes we just need a poop or a fart joke. We just do, right? We need to laugh. We just need that humor to get us through some parts of the day, right? So, I was like, should I bring up another poop or fart joke? I was like, I don't really need to do this, right? But okay, I'll tell you one more. This is not even a joke. This is just a crazy story, and it has more to do with this. Guys, listen carefully. This has to do with male management. Okay, male management. Okay, this is going to be big advice for you guys out there when it comes to male management, and I think a lot of you guys are going to agree with me, and some of you guys are going to probably think that I'm weird, and a lot of the girls are probably going to think I'm gross, right? But this is it. Okay, so I'll tell you something about me. Like there's certain types of foods that I can eat, but for some reason, when it comes to, when you guys have retreats and camps, I don't know what it is, but whenever I go to retreats or camps, the food gives me major gas, like major. And I'm not talking about the loud booming farts, but we're talking the silent but violent farts, like very hot and smelly. And I would sit there, it's so silent, but I would let one out. These are when I was in high school, right? I would let a fart out, and I would just sit there, wait to see who would notice it, and then I would see people's reactions, and they would just run from the vicinity, right? And, of course, I would sit there just laughing. So what was happening is, like, was it 2018 or 19, something along that line? There was an SS retreat, and it was in Texas. And then we went over to a member's house. And it was just fun. All the SS inside of this house. There's like 20 of us. And, it's great because you have all the guys together. And there was this room. In one of the rooms, it's a big room. And there's like this big bed in there. And what happened was, I don't know why, we ended up just talking and stuff. And people were like in the bed, we're just kind of in the bed under the covers, and some guys are lying on the floor, whatever it is, right? And yes, remember guys, this is long time ago. 2018 is how many years? 6 years ago. So I was like my mid 30s, right? Actually, that sounds bad too, but either way. And I had gas, and I let out some gas, and I think girls will never understand this. But girls, you'll never understand this, but when someone farts, even if you say, I farted, the guys have to smell it. I don't know what it is. They'll wait and smell it first, judge it, and then run away. That's the order of what a guy does. You'd be like, oh man, I farted. And we're like, oh, gross. And we sit there like, and we try to smell it, and we're like, oh man, that's gross. And then people start moving away. I know girls will probably just run away. Guys, it's like we got to sit and smell it so we can grade it. We can judge it and say, oh man, that was like, yeah, you're right. That was nasty, right? So what happens is, it wasn't just me. All of a sudden, the next guy starts farting. And we're like, oh, that's nasty, right? And then the other guy starts farting. So there's like 3 or 4 of us. And 3 or 4 of us in the room, and all 4 of us, we passed gas. And then all of a sudden, it became this initiation where the only people allowed in that room, you had to fart, and then you're allowed in the room. Tell me that's weird, okay? You had to fart to stay in the room. And if you didn't, within a certain timeline, you were outside of the fart club. You had to leave the fart room. And it was hilarious. We had guys trying to fart. Like, they're trying to get into the room. Like, one guy, he was like, dude, I'm lactose intolerant. And he runs to go drink some milk so he can fart, so he can stay in the room. It was crazy. This is so wrong. Why am I talking about this? It's so stupid. And I'm going to tell you, this is so weird, guys. This is just guys' culture. I'm telling you this. This is the secret looking into the world of guys. Guys, I'm serious. We need this type of stuff. It brings us closer together. You may disagree, but what I've seen so far holds true in almost every country I've been to. Guys, you guys are out there. Tell me it is true. Comment, support me on this. If I'm way off, you can say you're way off, I'm way off or not. Or you might just be angry that I told the secret of what guys are like, when it's just guys and stuff. And, girls, you guys are probably never going to understand this unless you have a brother. Unless you have a brother, you're probably going to understand this. Or if you have brothers, you'll understand it even better, right? But, I really think, that's my poop fart story of the day. And I'm going to tell you this straight up right now, guys. It's just, this is part of guys' culture. We will never grow up. I'm serious. We will never grow up. And when all the guys are together, these things just happen where you have a fart room and you can only stay if you fart. Like, we have girls, we had this room. And one time a girl walked in, she's like, what's that smell? And she just walks out. And the other guys are trying their best to stay in. They're all trying to fart. It was so, oh my gosh. Isn't it so funny? Even though it's such it's just a regular bodily function, but it's so funny. It just shows you how much of sense of humor God has. It really does. So, yeah. All right. So, yes, I hope that helps you guys out too to just relax on this wonderful Monday. But, yeah, guys, I've been talking too long about this. I know we got to get into it. I can't believe we're already 35 minutes into the podcast. But, yeah, either way, we do have like the Sunday message word study. So we'll get into that. I can't believe I ended off on that as my last thing to end off on. But, guys, more on a serious note, because we have both guys and girls in here. Before we get into today's Sunday message word study, let's get into the first music break of the day.
2023. We've all come a long way. Many different stories, but we're all on the same journey. Many, many ups and downs, but we're all still around. Many, many, many lessons, but each one came with a blessing. Let's not forget for where we come from when we make this confession. Some people just want to watch the world burn. As for you and I, let's set ourselves on fire, shine a light so bright that will make the people say, burning life, Look at the flames in my eyes, watch it burn, but don't stare too long, you might lose your sight. Some people gunning for our downfall, but they'll never see our demise. Burning life. Who's the one? I'm the one, he's the one. Are you the one? No, we're the ones who keep the fire going till the day we die, till they see the light, make it bright, till we hear the people say, born sinner, never could be ill. I know I'm back from the dead, yeah, the Lord is my healer. I took the red pill, that's why I call him teacher. When you learn about the spirit, oh, there ain't nothing realer. The one you learn from determines your entire destiny. Learn from the one who taught about eternity. Cloud craving, paper chasing, the joy is only temporary. I don't wanna do the same thing, so I hard to count the vanity. I keep my eyes on the prize, I'll never sell my soul to the devil in disguise. With both hands on each side, I'm holding on to dear life. I keep my guard up, never back down. When it goes down, I call on the Christ. Spiritual battle, answer the call. It's Call of Duty, modern warfare, put the armor of God. They're fighting Lucy with a rock, I got atomic bombs. Love the Lord your God and all your brothers, watch the demons fall. Don't be deceived, know who the ops is. Keep the unity and peace, go far way across this. Came to preach the word of God like I'm born in Tarsus. Here to testify the things I've seen on road to Damascus. He's the real deal, the real thing, be glad you heard the King's speech. Blessed are those who reach the end and get to hear the Lord speak. GODs, POC, we fulfilled everything. Burning life, kerosene, burning life, legacy.
You will never see me stop in the future. The life that fulfills God's will continue. Everyone thinks I'm unfortunate because I go through suffering. But inside of me it's different. Because I walk the path of eternal life.
Burning life, Look at the flames in my eyes, watch it burn, but don't stare too long, you might lose your sight. Some people gunning for our downfall, but they'll never see our demise. Burning life, who's the one? I'm the one, he's the one. Are you the one? No, we're the ones who keep the fire going till the day we die, till they see the light, make it bright, till we hear the people say,
like Mary poured out her perfume on Jesus' feet, I must pour out my heart, mind, and love on the one who saved me.
All right, so let's get into today's Sunday message word study, and we got a lot of great things from yesterday's Sunday message. It was powerful, it was riveting, tons of evidence, and since we are, Sunsy's pushing more evangelism once again, Sunsy is giving us he's giving us the cheat sheet. He's given us all the things we can do so that we can evangelize really, really well. The Sunday message, since I'm with you, make sure you take action together as well. You must do that. And it's basically, Sunsy's telling everyone, like, hey, guess what? Go and evangelize. And one thing I got to tell you is this. God is helping all of us, especially those that believe, those that love God, those that are serving God. God is helping you. We got to believe this, right? Don't worry. Don't feel anxious, because once you believe this, why would you feel worried? Just do your best. Do your best. You know, when I was talking to those two SS during that time on Sunday, like basically for 6 hours, I told you guys, right? One of the things that we would go over all these different stories, and the question they would always ask me is, are they still in Providence? Are they still in Providence? And I would have to, I'm just like, nah, they left. And they're like, what? Why are so many people leaving? Why is it like this? And then I was like, well, think about it. That's over a span of 26, 27 years, right? 26, 27 years, you're going to have people leave. There's going to be way more that stay, right? We're talking after they realize. You're going to have way more that stayed, but there are people that leave here and there, right? And one thing that people have to realize is doing your very best means that you did your best, and sometimes people are going to make their own decisions to leave this history, and that's not your fault. That's basically people making their own decision. And when they make their own decision, what does that mean? It also means that, but the one thing you have to remember is your merits and what you did does not go to waste. That is something you have to recognize. It's not like once that person leaves, all of a sudden, oh, your evangelism means nothing now. All that work you did mean, no. It still means something, because that is not up to you. Decisions they make to leave is not something that you made them do. You didn't tell them to. They make their own choices, right? So remember, God is with us. Do your very best. And once you realize this, what's going to happen is, you know that God's with you. He's helping you out. You're going to gain more hope, more strength. You're going to solve these problems even better. And you're going to be even happier when you realize this, right? So, that was one of the first points that I looked at. I was like, yeah, that's something we got to recognize, realize, and believe all the time, right? And sometimes it's like saying, what's God's work? There's so much God work out there. Praying is God's work. Evangelism is God's work. Lecturing is God's work. Management is God's work. Taking someone out to eat, making sure they're doing fine, that's God's work. Praying, we have to always understand that there's a lot of things we cannot think too by the letter, thinking to ourselves that, oh, God's work is only doing something for church. No, that is absolutely not true. Because even working and then paying your tithe does what? It actually helps to pay for the church buildings. That is God's work. It helps to pay the bills. It helps people in different ministries. That is God's work. And that's why there are so many different things to do. And then when you realize, even from, was it last week or the week before, some seems even like, oh yeah, by the way, you know what else is God's work? Even if you help the poor. Which means it doesn't have to be in Providence. Just God's work. God wants us to help the people who are in need. That's God's work. So I hope that we will keep that in mind. It's not just, God's work is only what you do inside of your church. No, there's tons of different things you can do also. Even someone who has that mentality and mindset, let's just say they want to become a famous singer, all the effort and hard work because they want to do it for God, to become a better singer, that is all God's work. That's all God's work. And when we start to do, when we start to not just believe, but love God and then do the work that God has told us to do, what's going to happen? We have to be those that understand God's going to help us endlessly and especially. So there's no need to be discouraged. Just be thankful and keep taking action more and more each and every day. And remember, do you remember what Sunseem said, how this message came about? Sunseem right now is praying in the midst of extreme hardship, right? We're in the middle. We're like getting ready for this, like probably one last court date next month. And as Sunseem was praying, God said to Sunseem, I am on the side of the good. I am helping you. And that gave Sunseem so much power and strength. And how do you know that, Sunseem's mind is really, really on this court case? Think about what the key word was for yesterday's Sunday message. Evidence. Evidence is power. Evidence is authority. Evidence is proof. It's about evidence. And, we talked about it in last week's Provi. We'll go over something else a little bit today. But we talked about, and guess what? that the biggest evidence that they had, we found out, like we took it to forensics and they said it was edited and manipulated. And now the court is going to take that same file to do the same thing. And we got to pray. We got to pray for this, that the results come out absolutely clear and clean. Because evidence is power. Evidence is going to be the thing that helps Sunsteam in this trial. And that's the evidence is the sign. And this whole message is about evidence. And that's the big thing going on the trial right now. Like I said, the judges, the court is going to go and take that file to two separate independent sources to do forensics on it. In the end, it's all about, can you prove it or not? Do you have the evidence to back it up or not? And that's the same thing when it comes to us in the Bible. One thing that Sunsteam says is very true is when people don't know, they make up their own theories. It's because they don't know. There's no evidence for it. Like one of the big ones that you have to think about is the sun stop lesson we teach all the time. If the sun stopped, there has to be evidence. Do you know what I mean? If the sun stopped for an entire day, guess what? The entire world would know what was going on. They would all be wondering, why is there an extra 24 hours of light on this side of the world and an extra 24 hours of light on the other side of the world? Someone would have written it down. They would have written it down. There's no evidence. Evidence remains in the end. And even when it comes to us, what about us? Sunsteem said that all the things that you're doing, the evidence is what remains. And that reminded me, actually, it really reminded me of MSD. In the end, this evidence will remain. For the next 1,000 years, people are going to be like, whoa, what happened here? Like, where did these 5,000 episodes come from? Where did they come from? Like, if I think about this, and let's just say the average age for me, I'll live, let's just say 45, let's say I live, the average age for a Canadian is like 84 or 83 or 84. Let's just round it to 85, which means I live for another 40 years. That means I'll do another 10,000 episodes. That means I'm going to see there will be, at the end of MSD, there'll be 11,000 episodes made. Tell me that's crazy. In the end, they're going to have this podcast that is running simultaneously with Providence history, and it's going to be also what's going to be used for them to mark when certain things happened in Providence. Like, oh, well, we know this happened here because on MSD episode 2367, Pastor Sky talked about this, and that was what was happening here, and we can see that this event actually started at this time over here. Do you know what I mean? It's all going to be left as evidence, and that is crazy. It's all evidence, just like a house, just like a road. Each of them remains. And we have to leave the evidence of the actions that we took in our life. But here's the thing that's the sad part too is, with this podcast, all my faults are coming out too. That's just the risk of it. It's not just my good points coming out. My bad points are coming out too. In history, when they're going to be studying these podcasts, they're going to see where I was wrong. They're going to see where I had bad character. They're going to see the parts are going to be like, ooh, oh, Sky really got it wrong there. Like, he really got it wrong. It's all going to be out there for people to see, both good and bad, right? It's all going to be seen. So it's something where, we're leaving evidence behind, and we're leaving both the good and the bad, and that's something that we're going to have to live with. But let's leave a lot more good than we have bad, right? Let's leave a lot more good than the bad that we want to leave behind too, right? So when we look at this week's message, man, there was a ton of different evidence. And the one that I'm really, really happy about, of course, was my script from last week, and Sunsteam went straight into it. Cain and Abel were Adam and Eve, the first two people on earth, and he added an extra verse that we can add, which is Genesis chapter 4, verse 8. Cain is scared that other people out there might kill him, which doesn't make any sense if they're the first family. If they're the first family, the first three people, because Cain already killed the fourth person, then why would he be worried about being killed when they're the only ones on the earth? Right? Doesn't make any sense. So that's like, I really like, that was a script I went over last week, right? So we already kind of have an idea about that too. And I hope that is something that we will really, really be able to understand better. Now, there are a ton of other scripts in there also. What was another another big, great script was, and we've been hearing this one for the last, I would say we've been hearing this for the last 6 months, 7 months maybe, where Son seems constantly talking about John the Baptist. John the Baptist. John the Baptist was Elijah. John the Baptist was Elijah. Malachi chapter 4 is the prophecy. Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 and 6 about Elijah coming back to the earth. Is he coming back in the body or the spirit, right? And that's something that we have to look at. But of course, the key verse that shows it's not going to happen is 1 Corinthians 15:50 is flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. And that is a verse that says the body cannot go to heaven. There's no point of the body going there when there's only spirits. There's never been and never will be a body that goes to heaven, right? So we see there, it's like, oh, there's another one where we can go into a script when it comes to Elijah and John the Baptist. And then from there, you can go into the script about Jesus returning. And this is a little bit harder one because, Jesus returning, when we say it's in the spirit, I think Christians will have a very, very hard time with that if they don't listen to the full Bible study. But they will definitely have to agree with John the Baptist being Elijah. That is a have to. If they don't believe that, that means they don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. That means they don't believe that Elijah came back, right? They can't believe in that because Elijah must come back in order for Jesus to be the Messiah. What was another really, really good script? The Sunstop one was a great script too, but I kind of went over that in the beginning. Ooh, there was what was the other script? There's one script that I underlined. Oh, Sun, Moon, and Stars. There's another script that we can use. Sun, Moon, and Stars prophecy. And the answers in with Joseph received the answers in, Genesis chapter 37, verse 9 is the actual dream. And verse 10, it's his father, Jacob, who actually interprets the dream like on the spot. Sun, moon, and stars, what are they exactly? And then, of course, for Abraham too, in Genesis 15, verse 5, God promises Abraham that his children, his descendants will be like the stars. So he compares the children to stars or descendants also. And those are another ones. So there's a lot of different scripts in there. And I think that's something that, you know what? This week, I know that Pastor Baker is doing the Sermons in the Sky. So I'm thinking to myself when to do the next script. Because I was doing it on Thursday. But because of this week's message, maybe I'll do it on, I don't know. Maybe either, Wednesday is Health is Happiness. Friday is, I don't know. Maybe I'll do it maybe I'll do it as one of the Q&As. I'll do a script for one of the Q&A questions. And I'll make that question for you right now is, what script would you use for a Gentile? Something along that line. Because I said I would do that. So I will find a way to put it in for this week's podcast and stuff. Okay? But yeah, guys, go over it. There's a ton of scripts that you can make from these messages. They're great. There is so much to go over, right? But the last point that I want to make, the scripts that we can look over ourselves, and I'll probably go over one on Thursday. But the last thing that God said to us God said, together with the Holy Spirit, just as I love you and help you, I love all people of Providence in the same way. So this is what the God and the Holy Spirit said to Sunstein. I help them, so don't worry. I, God and the Holy Spirit, do it for them because they are mine. I love all the people of Providence. Look at the past and see what happened to everything. The things you worried about, the things you did not worry about. Haven't I done all these things for you, he said. Therefore, through the word, he showed us the evidence and proof that he loves us. Amen. Thank you. right? So that Sunsteam said, amen, thank you. So that's like really encouraging words, and basically telling us, now what are we going to do then? If we know that they're going to help us through all these things, we have to live that absolute life of faith. What kind of faith? Loving to the end with an everlasting heart, right? God loves us this much, and we have to love God back. And that has to do, that's kind of like, that was like was that what I did for the Rebel Pastor podcast? Did I talk about that? I don't remember. But yeah, that's something that we do have to understand is this: God loves us that much, and it's time for us to love God back. And guess what? This is the greatest thing. It costs nothing to love. It costs nothing to love. Yes, I know in the world, for some reason, it costs money to love. But when it comes to God, it costs nothing. Don't change. Don't end the love. Because the moment you end it is a moment when every single thing that you did in the past all becomes void. It's worthless. But as long as we stay, even when we evangelize, go out and do the work, and let's just say someone leaves, no, it doesn't void. You're still here. You did the effort. You put it in. So I hope that we can go out with love, faith, truth, evangelism, management of lives, and let's make great accomplishments. Let's sacrifice and do as many different types of God's work that we can do for the rest of the week. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is today's Sunday message word study. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Lots of things you can glean from that, but especially I was licking my chops. Like, man, you can get some amazing scripts from this too. Either way. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Sunday Message Word Study. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. Yes, it's already like getting close to 11 p.m. over here, but I hope you guys are enjoying, enjoyed this time of Word Study too. But that moves us into tomorrow's, sorry. We have Provi in the Media coming right after this. So we have Provi in the Media after this. So yeah, let's get into the last music break of the day. Okay, so let's get into today's final segment. And of course, we've switched this to Mondays. We do have the Provi in the media, what is going on around the, well, not around the world, what is going on, especially with Sunsteam's trial, or is there any other different news that are coming out right now? Hope you guys have been receiving a lot from this, and I hope that this transparency also allows you to pray better for Sunsteam too. Especially we're doing this, think about this. We're setting a prayer condition right now for Sunsteam and Providence anyways. And because of the trial that's going on, we, knowing this helps us to pray better, helps us to pray with more urgency too. Okay? So I'm going to go into one of these articles that goes a little bit more deeply, into Sunsteam's trial that just went on about the different things that happened, like the different arguments that happened during that third court trial. Okay, so here's a very interesting thing. The first one was about brainwashing, and because of the brainwashing, the accusers say that it was irresistible. They could not, they were brainwashed, so it was irresistible. They had no choice. They couldn't resist, right? The very interesting thing is, so brainwashing and this irresistible logical structure that the prosecution came up with, in this article it says that the court did not agree with the prosecution's logical structure, which concluded that sermons and doctrine lectures by heads of religious institutions were brainwashing and the courts did not accept this, and it drove a wedge into their logic. The court said this: the key is not whether the defendant's status is on the same level as Jesus or some type of connection, but rather the logic of falling into inability to resist and whether or not it leads to inability to resist, and ordered the prosecution to present a new logical structure for inability to resist and submit an opinion. The defense lawyer was also requested to make a defense accordingly. Right, so there's a very interesting thing is they just didn't accept brainwashing and the inability to resist from the way that the prosecution was saying. Second one, we already went over this last time, which is the audio recording, right? And just the details of it is basically this. Maple handed in this audio recording, and she said she recorded with her iPhone in a space where the two of them were alone at the time of what happened. However, third-party voices were found in about 50 places, and male and female voices were recorded in different places, and that's what they found in the forensics. Okay, so that's why now they're going to be actually requesting Maple to come back as a witness, right? And the prosecution also announced that they will request Maple to come back as a witness to examine the recorded file evidence, right? And then, of course, one of the other big ones is showing in this article is talking about is Sunsteam God? That's their presentation, and our lawyer presented as evidence showing Sunsteam's many sermons saying, "A person with flesh can never become God. I am an errand boy. I am a foreman. Ask God." So basically, our defense team showed tons of these sermons. Sunsteam himself is, I'm a human being. I can never become God. I'm an errand boy. That sounds, that he's basically putting himself so low underneath God, right? And then, of course, the prosecution said this, and our lawyer said this, and Sunsteam also expressed his opinion through the lawyer. It's basically Jesus came at the first coming, and Jesus has to come back in the second coming as well. And those were the three main things that they talked about at that time. And, I think all of us are very, very clear with this is Sunsteam has never said he's God. Sunsteam is like, even I am a bride before God. And he also says that Sunsteam also says many times, he's like, oh, don't worship me, worship God. Even I worship God on Sunday too, right? So that's kind of like a little bit more of the details that came from there. That came from this break news article. I'm not reading it word for word, but there's no point. It's just too long to read word for word. But those are the different things that they were talking about. So I hope that helps you guys out and makes you a little bit more hopeful. and also helps you guys to pray a lot better too. All right? So there it is, guys. That is the end of Provi in the Media. Hope it's something that you guys super and awesomely enjoyed. You guys have an amazing and awesome Monday. Hope you guys, if you have any questions, comments, just leave it below. Would love to hear from you guys too. And enjoy your Monday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know.